Well, good afternoon. Kirk Euler back with you. You know, one of the fun things about doing the research that I do, looking for the data that I'm looking for in order to report back to you folks about what's really happening with this COVID thing, is it leads me to other questions, and I get to ask other questions. Why are these things happening? And I was spending a lot of time on the CDC's website, and all the data that you're going to see today all comes from the CDC website. So spent a lot of time on the CDC website, and I saw this chart. I thought this was particularly interesting. What this chart is doing is it's comparing the percentage of visits to hospitals for emergency departments specifically, for influenza-like illness, the flu, versus COVID-19-like illness. So it's comparing the number of emergency room visits between the flu and COVID-19. And it begins all the way back in September of last year and charts through to end of June. And what I want to draw your attention to is the yellow is the flu, the blue is the COVID. And beginning back in September, what you're going to see is these two lines are right on top of each other. They are identical. The COVID-related and the flu-related are identical. Here that we get, right, this is the start of the year, so this is New Year's, Christmas, New Year's. It bumps up a little bit, and then it drops back down. Right about here is when Trump institutes the travel ban. So we know what's going on. We know the COVID is present, and it's happening. Trump institutes the China travel ban. We get our first death, February 6th, the first death, and it continues, and they are right on top of each other. There's no difference. As a matter of fact, at one point, after the first death, more flu visits than COVID visits, right up until week 12. And look what happens week 12. Boom, COVID, straight up, flu, straight down, to the point where what was once identical now is 3 and 4 times higher COVID over the flu. So I'm seeing that going, wait, why? How does something like that, is that confirmed when I just look at just the flu cases by themselves? Is broken down by age groups? Is there something that I'm missing? Well, no, here are all the different age groups and flu cases for this year. This is this year, moving right along, trucking right on up until we get to the 12th week. 12th week is around the end of March, middle of the late toward the end of March. And all of a sudden it flatlines. All of them. Every age group flatlines. Just boom, nothing. Well, how's that compare to, say, last year? Well, here's last year. Cruising right along, 12th week, keeps cruising right along. All age groups continue to climb after the 12th week. And I'm thinking, well, okay, that's a little odd. What about other years past, where we can compare and say what happened? Well, this is going back to 2009, 2010. The chart of all of the flu-related influenza illness surveillance network. This is their percentage of visits for flu-like illness, okay? And what we're seeing, with this year's the red. And interestingly, we saw, you always get a spike right around, a little bump right around Thanksgiving. That's the week of Thanksgiving, right around there. And then you come to Christmas, and you get a pretty good one. We had a pretty good one this year. This, by the way, is the outlier. This was the swine flu year. So that's why you saw a big spike back here in September, October-ish, and then it dropped and went away and was gone. But these, all the rest of them, they bump up right at around Christmas, New Year, and then they drop back down. And then right around the end of January, first part of February, they bump back up, and then they all drop. 1, 2, a mild one there, 1, 2. This year, look what happened. 1, 2, and all of a sudden, we're shooting up for a third spike of the flu until the end of March, week 12. And week 12 hits, and boom, it drops off to where it's nothing. Now, as a matter of fact, it drops off so far, it goes down to areas uncharted before. No other year dropped off as far as this year did after 1, 2, 3 spikes. Huge. The highest total volume of flu-related cases was this year until it went away. What's that look like on a landscape basis? I wondered. This is what our landscape looked like week 12. The darker the color, the worse the flu is. This is week 12 when all of a sudden it drops off to nothing. Just 4 weeks later, week 16, you've got a couple northeastern states that are still, otherwise the green is minimal. It just disappeared from the landscape. Week 12, the third week in March. What happened right around that time? Mr. Mitch McConnell introduced a bill in the United States Senate, S. 3548, known as the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, introduced on March 19th of 2020. The CARES Act, introduced in the 12th week. What did the CARES Act do? Well, let's ask a physician. Happens to be a member of the United States Senate, Republican from Minnesota, interviewed on Fox News. So obviously we have to discredit it because it's interviewed on Fox News. He claimed hospitals get paid more if their Medicare patients are listed as having COVID-19 and get 3 times as much money if they need a ventilator. Well, I mean, come on. It's a claim made by a Republican on Fox News, so obviously we can't take that seriously, right? So none other than USA Today jumps into action. Not The Spectator, not National Review, no. USA Today, bubblegum for the mind. The USA Today decides we need to get in on this and fact check this guy. And so they sent off an email to a fellow Marty Makary, a surgeon and professor of health policy and management at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, about the claim that this Republican Senator Johnson made. Makary said in an email April 21st that what Scott Johnson said sounds right to me. Well, we can't let it rest with that. That's just one source. So, PolitiFact, hardly a conservative outfit, PolitiFact reporter Tom Kircher wrote, quote, "The dollar amounts Jensen cited are roughly what we found in an analysis published April 7th by the Kaiser Family Foundation, a leading source of health information." As if that's not enough, we go to Ask Fact Check, weighed in on April 21st. The figures cited by Jensen generally square with estimated Medicare payments for COVID-19 hospitalizations based on average Medicare patients for patients with similar diagnoses. So, USA Today rules true. Hospitals and doctors do get paid more for Medicare patients diagnosed with COVID-19, or if it's considered presumed they have COVID-19 absent a laboratory confirmed test. So you can even be presumed COVID. And 3 times more if the patients are placed on a ventilator to cover the costs of care and loss of business resulting from a shift in focus to treat COVID-19 cases. So what happens? We are experiencing one of the worst flu years in the history of the United States, with not 1, not 2, but 3 huge peaks. The 10-year history, not the entire history, the 10-year history as viewed graphically on the CDC. We're experiencing one of the worst. And as of the 12th week, it's gone. The flu is gone. The landscape goes from this to this in just 4 weeks, because all of a sudden we started paying people to report COVID at a much higher rate than if they reported the flu. Ladies and gentlemen, we're being played.